There are places on this earth that were never meant to hold light. Places where the dark isn't the absence of something. It's the presence of something else. Something old. Something patient. This is the story of Holloway Point Lighthouse and the keeper who sent one final letter before he vanished. If you're listening to this alone at night, with the lights off, you might want to reconsider, because once you know what happened out there, you'll never look at a lighthouse the same way again. Let's begin. In the autumn of 1987, a man named Elias Voss answered a newspaper advertisement. The Coast Guard was looking for a temporary keeper to maintain the automated light at Holloway Point, a remote spit of rock off the northern coast, accessible only by a supply boat that came once every 3 weeks. The pay was good, the isolation better. Elias had just lost his wife to illness, and the thought of 80 days alone with nothing but the sea and his grief sounded less like a punishment and more like a mercy. He didn't know that Holloway Point had a history. The locals in the nearest fishing village never spoke of it directly, only in the way people talk around a wound, careful not to touch it. 3 keepers before him had requested early relief. 2 never gave a reason. The 3rd left a single note pinned to the lighthouse door. It counts the days for you. Don't let it finish counting. Elias found the note curious, but not alarming. He was a rational man, an engineer once. He believed in maintenance logs and tide charts, not superstition. He should have believed the note. The ferryman who dropped him at the rock that first morning barely said a word the entire crossing. When Elias finally asked why the lighthouse had gone through so many keepers in so few years, the old man just tightened his grip on the wheel and said the island didn't like being watched back. Elias laughed it off. By the time he understood what the ferryman meant, there was no boat left to take him home. The job itself was simple, on paper. Check the lamp mechanism, log the weather, wind the foghorn clockwork, watch the sea. For the first 10 days, Elias's journal entries, the ones later recovered by investigators, were mundane, almost soothing to read. He wrote about the gulls. He wrote about a storm that rattled the windows for 6 hours straight. He wrote, more than once, about how quiet his own thoughts had become, now that there was no one left to perform normalcy for. Then, on day 11, the entries change. Found scratches on the inside of the lamp room door this morning. Deep ones, 4 parallel lines, evenly spaced like a hand dragged downward. I didn't put them there. I checked the supply manifest. No other keeper has been on this rock in 6 months. I'm choosing not to think about it. He didn't think about it. Not out loud anyway. But 3 days later, he began locking the lamp room door from the outside, a door that, by design, was never meant to be locked at all because the light needed constant tending through the night. By day 15, he started hearing footsteps on the spiral staircase, always at 3:14 in the morning. Always the same time, down to the minute, as if something out there did not experience time the way Elias did. As if it was simply repeating a moment it had already lived 1,000 times before. He began sleeping with the journal beside his pillow, recording the footsteps like a scientist logging a recurring experiment. Up 31 steps, pause, down 31 steps, every night, never faster, never slower. On day 19, he finally opened the lamp room door to look. There was nothing there. Of course there was nothing there. That's always how it starts, isn't it? The absence is the first lie the place tells you, so that by the time the presence arrives, you've already convinced yourself you're safe. What he found instead was worse than footsteps. Carved into the brass housing of the lamp itself, the housing that had been polished and inspected only 2 weeks earlier, was a number. 19. The exact day he was on. He scrubbed it off with steel wool. His hands, according to the journal, wouldn't stop shaking for an hour afterward. The next morning, the number was back, 20. Elias began to understand, slowly and then all at once, what the 3rd keeper's note had meant. It counts the days for you. The lighthouse, or whatever lived inside it, wearing the lighthouse the way a hermit crab wears a borrowed shell, was keeping score. And Elias didn't know what happened when the counting reached its end. He requested early relief through the radio. The response was garbled, half swallowed by static, but he heard enough to understand. No boat could reach him for another 11 days. The nearest crew was engaged in a rescue 60 miles south. He was, for all practical purposes, completely alone. His entries after that grow shorter, tighter, a man rationing his own sanity, word by word. Day 23. The number changes even when I don't sleep. I sat up all night watching the housing. I never blinked longer than a few seconds. And still, 23. It doesn't need me to look away. It just needs time to pass. Day 26. I hear it breathing now. Not footsteps, breathing. Slow, wet, enormous, like something the size of the tower itself is standing just outside the glass, exhaling fog instead of air. I have stopped going near the windows after dark. Day 28. I tried to radio the mainland again, got through for 11 seconds before the static swallowed it whole. In those 11 seconds, I heard a woman's voice on the other end say my name, clear as anything, before the line went dead. I don't have a wife anymore. There is no woman who would say my name into that radio. I don't know what said it instead. Day 29. I think I understand what it is. Not a ghost, not a haunting in the way people mean the word. I think this rock was here before the lighthouse, before the Coast Guard, before the county had a name. I think men built a house of light on top of something that has always lived in darkness, and called that an act of civilization. I think it has been patient for a very, very long time. And I think patience like that only exists in something that already knows it's going to win. Day 31, the final full entry, is the one that convinced investigators something had genuinely gone wrong rather than a man simply cracking under isolation. Because on day 31, Elias wrote something no lonely, frightened mind should logically produce. It isn't counting the days I've survived. It's counting down to something. I found an old maintenance log from 1962, the year this place was first automated. A keeper vanished that year too, on his 34th day. I have 3 days left. Day 32 contains only a single line, written in handwriting so unsteady it barely resembles the rest of the journal. It knows I know. It stopped hiding the number tonight. It just stands at the base of the stairs and lets me watch it count out loud. There is no entry for day 33 at all. Just a blank page, and beneath it, pressed so hard into the paper that it tore through to the next 3 sheets. A single word. Listen. The supply boat finally reached Holloway Point on what should have been day 34. The light was still burning. Every mechanism was in perfect working order. Better than perfect, actually. Cleaner and more precisely calibrated than any inspection had ever recorded it. The journal sat open on the desk, pen resting neatly beside it, as though Elias had simply stepped away mid-sentence to answer a knock at the door. There was no sign of forced entry, no sign of struggle. His coat still hung by the door. His boots, the only pair he owned on that rock, were still by the bed. He was never found. But here's the detail that the official report leaves out, the detail that only surfaces in the unofficial transcripts of the men who searched the tower that day. On the brass housing of the great lamp, freshly carved, still sharp enough to catch a fingernail, was a single number, not 34, 0. As if the counting hadn't ended with Elias's disappearance, as if it had simply reset, ready to start again the moment the next keeper walked through that door. Holloway Point Lighthouse was permanently automated after 1987. No human keeper has set foot inside the lamp room since. The Coast Guard maintains it remotely now, and officially, there's nothing unusual about the structure at all. But sailors who pass close to that stretch of coast at night say the light doesn't behave like a normal beacon. It doesn't sweep in a steady mechanical rotation the way it's programmed to. Every so often, never predictably, it pauses. Holds still on the black water for exactly 3 seconds, then resumes, as if something up there had simply looked away from its work to watch a boat go by. And if you ever find yourself out on that coastline and you see the light pause like that, sailors say there's only one thing you should do. Don't count the seconds. It's already counting for you.